Flynn, is the Regional Haze Program intended to protect public health?
Thank you for the question, Chairman. It categorically is not intended to protect public health.
Can you explain how this makes this rule different from the National Ambient Air Quality Standards?
Absolutely. The Regional Haze Rule is aimed entirely at protecting visibility conditions. Section 169A of the Clean Air Act establishes a national goal that Congress set of achieving visibility conditions in what are called Class 1 federal areas, essentially national parks and wilderness areas, large ones, that is unimpaired by man-made air pollution. That national goal is phased in over a long period of time, a decades-long span of time. EPA has set a target goal for achieving the national goal of 2064. Even that date is not written into the statute, and it's simply a part of EPA's regulations. And EPA's regulations provide for the fact that states are free to determine whether the glide path to get to unimpaired visibility by 2064 is in fact reasonable. If it's not reasonable, states are free to push that deadline back even further.
Let me ask you on that. Did Congress intend the Regional Haze Program to be used by the EPA to mandate specific controls at specific power plants? Was that the intent?
Congress certainly provided for the BART provisions, which envision states looking at and deciding whether specific controls are justified for specific facilities.
But that would be up to the states, right?
Exactly right, sir. And it is also, certainly there's nothing in the Clean Air Act that suggests that specific controls for specific classes of facilities are mandated by the Regional Haze Program. It is very much a process of weighing various factors, a process that is imbued with a vast amount of discretion in order to determine whether controls are justified at all and what controls those might be. And as you said, those decisions are intended to be made by the states.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yeatman, would you agree that EPA's visibility goals at the heart of the Regional Haze regulations have already been achieved based on the pictures you showed us and compared to some of the pictures we saw before that? It would appear that most of these goals have already been achieved. Would you agree with that?
Thank you very much for the question. Indeed, I would agree that as Congress envisioned and as EPA envisioned, because this is an aesthetic regulation and not a public health regulation, that states could very well achieve the goals of this program through implementation of the Clean Air Act's public health rules. I mean, remember, the Clean Air Act is a ratcheting mechanism almost. Every 8 years, the new source performance standards for each source category must be reviewed and updated. Every 8 years, hazardous air pollutant standards for each source category must be updated. So the very nature of the Clean Air Act is to get more stringent with time. It is, as such, reasonable to depend on these ever more stringent public health controls to achieve these not public health, these aesthetic goals. Very briefly, if I might just touch upon the matter of the federal implementation plans that was brought up by my fellow witness. Indeed, I would note, I was under the impression it was 26 as opposed to 35, but that is neither here nor there. We can definitely get the official number in the record. I'd note only that all FIPS are not created equal. As I understand it, and as was explained in the testimony of my fellow witness, Mr. Polkowsky, the science wasn't there to implement regional haze rules for regional haze as opposed to individual plumes until the late 90s. The upshot is there weren't costs attendant to those FIPS. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Polkowsky, I'm under the impression there were controls at the Four Corners power plant that first round, but I don't know of any others. The upshot being there certainly weren't $5 billion worth of costs imposed by the federal government on unwilling states. So I think that's a difference that should be noted.
In my few remaining seconds, at this time, Mr. Yeatman, are additional and more stringent regional haze regulations necessary?
Oh, that's for each state to determine. That's for states to determine how much they value an aesthetic improvement.
Okay. My time has expired. I now recognize the ranking member, Ms. Bonamici, for 5 minutes.